today's presentation. We're in the today we have Ian de Hoog out of Canada, British Columbia, so kind of our neighbor to the very short north. Great place. So, Ian, would you like to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Hey, John. Thanks for having me here for Friday Live today. This is
thank you so much for joining us. I'm looking forward to your presentation. Would you like to hear questions as they happen or questions at the end? Which would you prefer?
Yeah, as they go is fine. I can walk and chew gum. So,
as artists, you always amaze me that you can take the question, formulate response, really good response to the questions, and continue your artwork. It's amazing.
Don't set the bar too high with good response. I can answer questions. I don't guarantee that it's going to be decent.
Ethel, can you show us Ian's slideshow?
Yeah, sure. We begin with that. There we go. Do we see this now?
I see it.
Okay.
Yep.
So yeah, Ian is from Canada, live from Canada today. And as we always say, we want our audience, our friends here to connect with you, Ian, right away. Ian is, of course, on Instagram. This is his account, Ian de Hoog Art. And also similar handle for Facebook. This is his website. Easy to remember because it's his name. And then Ian, yes, a couple of slides will be sample artworks, and would be lovely if we could hear a line or two about each of the works here. We begin with this.
All right, I picked this one specifically because it's got a connection with Daniel Smith for me. I had been doing a lot of little landscapes, trying to keep things fairly loose and playing around with, all the bright colors, high chroma. It was that time of year. And I put this up, and shortly after it went up, I was actually contacted by Daniel Smith to ask if they could post it.
Oh.
So I was like, what? That's amazing. Absolutely. So just resulted in some great communication with Catherine. And then eventually they put together a little doc card for me, which was really nice. So it's got some sentimental value to me. That's why I put this in. So
very cool.
Next one.
This one. I picked this one specifically because it's the biggest watercolor I've ever made. I think it really showcases just a lot of the lovely earth hues in addition to the Prussian blue that's in there as well. This is about a 4 foot by 8 foot watercolor that I did on a commission. It was a really unique story that was presented to me as far as making this painting. It was a tree that was outside of a home of a family. They'd fought to kind of keep it. Other people on the street wanted to get rid of it. They didn't have trees in front of their property, so I don't know if that had something to do with it. But during a storm, a large branch broke off, and the scar that was left behind, after a number of years, their family grew. Eventually, it grew so big that they had to move, and this scar on this tree developed all these lovely umber tones and ochres, and they wanted a memento of that tree when they moved to hang in their home. So I was asked to paint this. So
very cool.
Beautiful story.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So yes, little rock pigeon. I do paint an awful lot of birds, and I'd like to have a lot of fun with kind of unassuming birds, something that people might take for granted, just little, I don't know, pesky birds, if you will, I suppose. And the rock pigeon is really, really beautiful. Lovely hues. You've got the cobalt teal blue in there, which is just really just so beautiful in this painting. Just a little bit of granulation in there. So yeah, I really quite enjoyed making this little bird. That little swallow. Again, just a lot of birds, just nice, simple, clean little bird. Just trying to focus on establishing a line up the wing. I'm always trying to drive towards the head, so I tend to keep things simple, further away from the head. Simple statements, don't get into too much detail as far as, really trying to define feathers or anything like that. I really love just the subtle little bit of imperial purple in the shoulder there. And I've painted a lot of chickadees. As a matter of fact, they're right outside my window right now. They're always a great little subject. Such cool birds, tiny little alphas in a mixed bird group. They just kind of sit there. All the finches will show up and they don't look around for predators at all when the chickadees are around. Chickadee just kind of sits there in the trees and likes to chirp off if anything's in the neighborhood. And then you watch the finches all of a sudden lift their heads and see if it's actually anything serious. Otherwise, they just sit there and eat. So they're really, really interesting little birds. And just lovely hues on them too. This is a chestnut back chickadee. So a lot of the, this is actually quinacridone burnt orange in the shoulders there.
Ian,
Yes.
is it true that Canada does not have a bird, like Canadian bird?
Well, we've got the Canada goose,
Goose. Okay.
right? And I think that I'm not 100%. I might have to Google it, but there is also the gray jay,
Gray jay.
otherwise known as the whiskey jack. I don't know if that's like the unofficial Canadian bird or if it's the official one and the Canada goose isn't, just has Canada in the title. I'm not 100% on that. But we definitely have the Canada goose, the scourge of golf courses everywhere.
Nice.
Yeah, this was my wife and I went. It is the gray jay. Someone's typed in the comments there. I just saw. So my wife and I went on a little excursion, and one of the places we stopped by was a honey farm. And I like a nice jar of honey as much as anyone that likes honey, I suppose. And they had these great little glass jars, and shaped like bears. I hadn't seen one in a long time, so we bought a couple. And it was sitting on the counter, and the light had come through it. And I was like, that actually would be really fun to paint. It's not something that I would normally do, but I decided, oh, what the heck. And it was really, really fun. I love the play of the complements with the oranges and the blues, just nice and simple, and just trying to keep that nice light value in the more golden areas of the honey. Was a really good honey too. So sea turtle. Yeah, this was actually really fun. I really enjoyed working on this. Lots of great texture on the sea turtle, even in just trying to get some nice granulation in the scutes on the shell, and then trying to work the patterning on the pectoral fin there, flipper, whichever you want to call it. Yeah, a lot of, it's actually burnt sienna light and ochre in the mostly, and then some quinacridone burnt scarlet in the lower parts of the
Ian,
scute.
did you use frisket at all on the pectoral, or?
No, I don't use frisket at all. I don't.
Okay.
I lack the patience, unfortunately. It would probably make my life a lot easier, but I ruined a really nice brush with it because I just didn't really know what I was doing at the time. I'd experimented with it. And I think enforcing myself to avoid it, I mean, I still make mistakes, but I have gotten a fair bit better with brush control as a result. So
That would be the
Ian,
last.
Susan is asking what blues were in the background of the beer jar. Do you remember?
I think that was ultramarine and some neutral tint, mostly,
Mhm. Thank
and
you.
a little bit of imperial purple in the outer edges there, just to kind of go against the warmer yellow.
And I think there's another question from Trina, Ian, the very first artwork with a tree. She asked, what's the size of that piece, since you mentioned that's so far the biggest that you've painted?
So not the first one, but the second one was the biggest, and that was 4 feet by 8 feet.
Wow.
It was a nightmare. I'm not one to generally tape things down too much. I mean, I'll use a little bit of masking tape on a coroplast board, but this was really big. And it was a commission. So I tried to do all the right things. So I got a very large piece of plywood and gum tape, and I took the huge roll and soaked it in a tub to get all the water nice and expanded, gum taped it down, thinking, okay, this is going to be good because I don't want any buckling in the paper. And I took a good hour to finally get the thing down onto the board. And that was it for the end of the day. Came down into the studio the next morning, and the tension strength of the paper as it had dried was so strong that it forced the gum tape to release along the length, and only the ends were holding, and it was just bowed up like a bow and string, just weebling on the floor of the studio in the morning. It's like, oh man. But when I went and tapped my hand on the paper, it was pretty drum tight. So I just kind of shored up the wooden support so it wouldn't rock back and forth, and proceeded with the painting. Unfortunately, when I did release it from the ends, it was a fair bit buckled, and it was actually due to ship the next day. So in a bit of a panic, I bought a large king size sheet, and thinking 100% cotton, I've got an iron, it's got 100%, it's got a cotton setting. I folded it up in the sheet and painted side away from the iron, and I ironed a corner, and it just took all the buckling out, ironed up the whole thing, and rolled it up and shipped it. So
Wow.
that was a big painting. It was fun to paint though. Just I used a really big hockey brush, and yeah, it was a lot of fun.
That was awesome. How long did that take?
I don't know. I never really record how long it takes. I mean, it was a lot of, looking at it and trying to figure out what's going to be the next thing. I think that's generally, what I spend most of the time on, especially when it's a commission. If it's something I'm just working on and, there's no, exterior pressure or whatever, things don't generally take that long. But when I know it's going to someone, it's difficult to try to filter out their voice, right? So it's like, what would make them happy in this instance, or that sort of thing. And that does kind of slow me down a bit, because ultimately, when you have a commission, you want them to be happy.
Sure.
So that does kind of slow the process down a fair bit for me. So.
Did you do a preview painting for yourself to kind of go by?
With that one, yeah, I did a couple of little sketches of it, just overall color massings, to see what kind of worked. I was also aware of the fact that where they were going to hang the home, the blue that's in that painting was not in the reference that they had provided. but I knew that they were going to hang it in a very large room, and going out through the patio doors in the living room it was going to hang. They had a pool, or have a pool, and I wanted a connection to the outside space in the painting. So there was a really lovely blue that was in a reference image of the home. As I kind of keyed on that a little bit to connect the painting inside to the outside of their new place.
Thank you.
Very nice. Okay.
I
So
was not
Ian,
re-
would do you
Yeah,
want?
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Nope, no, go ahead. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat and I shouldn't be.
Would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. All right. So I'm gonna paint a bird today. I'm gonna paint a little red-breasted nuthatch. So we'll see how that goes. We started at what, 10:30? So kind of let me know how much time I've got, kind of thing, I suppose. Do I need to set a timer? I don't know how this works.
So about 40 minutes, 50 minutes.
Okay, perfect.
And is your image, your reference image, a photo, or is it just?
Oh yeah. Here, let me get rid of me, and I'll put that right there. How's that?
Oh, it's cute.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
We'll just put that up in the corner so everybody can see. So whenever I mean, like many people, right, starting with lights. So I'm going to start into the lower tummy of this bird, and I'm going to just get my reference up on my screen here a little bit bigger.
And people are gonna want to know what size is your paper and what
Oh
kind of
yeah. This
you're
is
painting on.
7.5 by 11. I
Cold
usually
press,
I
hot
usually do
press.
cold press. I think it's arches. It's either arches or Fabriano Artistico. All right, there we go.
Is
And I'm
that
currently
300 grams?
140 pound, 300 GSM. Yeah.
Ian, even though you've mentioned it before, now some
Yes.
people want to know about your palette, where to get it, or what is it called?
This is a palette made by John Hurtley in the UK.
Hardly.
Hurtley, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And there's a request here, Ian, from Marnell. This is from Facebook. She said,
Mhm.
can you address bird feet during your work? She's painted bird commissions and never want to do the feet.
Never what?
She wished to see you do a demo on the bird feet. The feet.
That's probably not gonna happen today.
Okay.
As far as like paint the feet on this bird.
I suppose so. She stated bird feet.
Yeah. So, I mean, if it says address the bird feet, I mean, I can comment on it. I generally don't paint them. Main reason for me, well, I guess it sort of started out in a sketchbook, just trying to go through a lot of different bird shapes, doing a lot of, quick drawings and then just quick applications of paint. And I found it was always just the shape of the bird itself without the feet was generally what I was sketching in the books. And when I would start going through and applying paint to it, I kind of liked the way it looked. I had been, doing essentially a graphite drawing of the bird, graphite with the feet, perhaps the branch that it was sitting on. And then I just stopped. Never really looked back. And when we've got such a nice curve to the bird, I always find the little sticks sticking out as a bit of a distraction. So but with the time that I've got today, I don't know that I'll really get to putting any feet in here. Okay, so 1 second here. Oops. All right, so I'm just gonna start with a little bit of water. The paper is flat right now, yes. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the, so I'm using colors. I'm using French ochre here, burnt sienna light, and a little bit of neutral tint at the end there. And I'm just gonna start with just a little bit of water, just clean water. You might see a little bit of color fringing along the edge here. I draw my silhouettes with watercolor pencil. And I'm going to transition into the
Ian? Sorry, I've accidentally muted your mic.
I
You.
was like, I didn't touch anything. So did I say something that some people missed then?
Probably.
I think I had mentioned that I draw the silhouettes of my birds with watercolor pencil. If there was a little bit of color fringing coming up in there, then that's going to come from that. And I tend to, regardless of a reference, consider the light coming top down. So just dropping a little neutral tint down in the bottom here.
Ian, could you comment on the colors that are on your palette, please?
Like
This is
yeah?
no, the ones that you're using now.
Oh, okay. So I'm using, so it's a little bit of French ochre in the, I started with there. I tend to think of them as, earth yellow, earth orange. It's kind of how I organize my palette. So my earth yellow right now is French ochre. And then for an earth orange, I'm using burnt sienna light.
Thank you.
Hi, Ian. This is Raj here from India.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Great.
Great. Well, I just wanted to ask you, do you put background later on or mostly, or there are certain times, you use background first and then
I don't do backgrounds. I don't do feet and I don't do perches. I suppose there are some reasons for that, and I don't know if it's reasons or excuses. I haven't really made up my mind, but I growing up, my mom was really fond of Robert Bateman and that type of work. So that's a lot of what I was familiar with as far as the birds go. I mean, beautiful works. Robert Bateman still painting to this day, and remarkably detailed, beautiful backgrounds. And I guess there's a point in looking at it where I'm like, well, I mean, that's kind of been done and done really, really well. So I was like, well, I don't really need to do that. So
Okay, thank you.
I kind of started just doing less.
Right, I understand. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you for your question. I appreciate it.
I think it lets us off the hook too.
Lets you off the hook. Well, I mean, I guess that's another thing with the feet too, right? Like,
Yes.
we'll say, well, why don't you do the feet? Well, okay, fine. Then you put in the foot, and then you put in the foot, and someone goes, well, what's it standing on?
Oh,
And you're like, oh,
first
okay.
time I had to do hands, I thought I wish I had boxing gloves for these hands. You have to come up with the right number of fingers and the right knuckles and everything. Not easy.
Yeah, you got to make sure you get the right number of fingers in a portrait. Otherwise, someone's going to think it's AI.
Mhm.
Isn't that the thing with AI? Don't they always seems to muck up the hands in particular? So I get this in, I put in a little bit of water in here just to break up the wash a little bit of texture in there. And then I can let that sit for a little bit. In the meantime, I kind of look for areas that I can deal with that aren't adjacent, unless I want things to leak into the other areas, which in this case I don't. So always hunting for the next little spot to stick the brush in. And in this case, I think I can get away with dealing with the iris of the eye. It's not touching anything. I do have a hairdryer handy. So just get in there. Usually I'm using, an 8 or 12 size brush for a lot of what I'm doing. I usually use calligraphy style brushes quite a bit, but unfortunately, one of the main ones that I would use has seen an awful lot of use over the last few years, and I need a new one. So, all right, there we go. So that's kind of the first little wash into the tummy area. I don't know that I can really get in here yet. Actually, I can probably get into that little beak there. It's probably a reasonable thing to accomplish.
And people would like to know about your sponge you have on your palette there, the dark square. Yes.
Yeah, that's just a kitchen sponge, just from the cleaning aisle in the grocery store. Just you buy like a pack of 6 kind of thing. And then I just cut it up so that it would fit. It's a little dirty. I probably should clean it a little bit more, but it's just there. I usually, when I'm here, I use the towel. And then when I'm out and about, I use the sponge. All right, so I'm just using a little bit of ultramarine with a little bit of neutral tint just to dull it down a little. And I'm just going to put a little light value into the beak here. And then just put a little bit of water into the top. And then about this point, I'm actually just gonna reach back here and just put a little tin underneath this because I'm gonna start wanting the paint to come down a little bit more.
This has got a really good rhythm, your reference picture, the bird.
Yeah, nuthatches in particular just have such a great shape to them. Just a lovely.
Precisely, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Oh, I know. They're pretty cool. I've got a few of them that routinely come to the feeder in my backyard, and they're charming, charming little birds.
Could you tell us about the type of brushes you like to use to paint the birds?
So what I use most of the time, have used most of the time, are these, but this one is lost a lot of hair. So if I were to start using it, it's gonna start coming out, but it's served me quite well. So what I'm using currently are the Skoda. I'm using a Reserva, an 8, and then I'm using a small synthetic round. It's about a size 2. I'm using a long-handled, hog-haired flat fan brush that's been kind of cut up. And that's about it. Okay, let me just check this out. I'm going to grab a little bit of my neutral tint. Just a light pass right now.
Hi, Ian.
Hello.
It's me, Besnik.
How are you doing?
I am also a painter. Katie just mentioned that you also have another bird. Do you see it in your palette with a head looking on top?
Another what?
Look at the palette with your, I think, which one is the second color? Did you see you have another bird?
It's a bird.
Yeah.
Yeah, there you have. No, the
On the
mixing
well.
palette.
On the well. Here.
Yeah, that one. You see
The
it?
wing?
Yeah. And the head on top.
Here.
And there's a crow looking downward on the next one to the right.
There we go. There's a foot on this one.
There's your foot.
Yeah, nice. Huh? Yeah, just go ahead, buddy. You're doing so nice. I love it.
Oh, thank you very
Sorry
much.
to interrupt you.
No. It's fine. It's fine.
That could be the Canadian duck. Geese.
This one? Yeah, let me just bring this. Oh, well, anyways. All right. I'm going to need to give this a quick little dry here. Hopefully Zoom will do its thing and cut this sound. But I just want to make sure that the edges are dry before I come up against it.
There we go.
That's a good dryer. Zoom couldn't turn it off.
There we go. Okay. So since I kind of have this area dry, I'm going to just put this one little piece into his eye there. It's always nice to kind of have it sort of looking back at you. And this is just, I think it's lunar black. I pretty much, well, I only really use the black for this one thing. I think the darkest part, I'm always trying to go to the face when I'm painting the birds. So the darkest thing that I want to have in the painting, the darkest value, I suppose, is going to be the pupil. So that the black sits there for that. Just grab a little piece of paper towel here and just kind of wipe some stuff out of my wells because I'm going to move on to the blue. So overall, the blues for this are, I would say, kind of middle blue, slightly dull. There's a little bit of slight blue violet in the lower shoulder, which I just used that subtle little bit of earth yellow because I was going to be putting a little bit of blue violet in there, so a little compliment there. So I'm just mixing up some blue, which is, I think, mostly cobalt.
Ian, do you take the photos of the birds yourself?
A lot of ones I do. I spent about almost 10 years as a professional photographer. I've got a 100-400 lens on a Fuji. So I do take an awful lot of photos.
Wow.
Though, you know, the pandemic was, I mean, not great, but, you know, some good came of it. And, you know, I can only look at my backyard birds for so long. I mean, I love them, but, you know, you reach out to people on Instagram, and it's always surprising how gracious people are. If you ask, and it's like, oh, I really love this image. I've never seen this bird before. You know, I'd love to paint it. And they're like, yeah, go ahead. So. And there are a lot of good sources out there as well for people for images too. All right.
Do you ever paint birds from your imagination?
No. No, I mean, that's not entirely true. Not from my imagination, but there's certain birds that, you know, I've painted a number of times. So, you know, I'll just kind of set up a shape and I know what values I'm going to use and hues. I don't really need to see the reference. So what do we got here? Okay, good. So it's just variations of like a middle blue with a little bit of neutral tint in it and a little bit of imperial purple over on the side there.
Ian,
Yes.
Sue would like to know if your color palette is still the same as your dot cards or if you have changed any.
Yeah, it's changed. I think, you know, the overall idea of it is the same. I work off of a split primary palette, so but I think in a lot of teaching that I've been doing, especially pre-pandemic, where, you know, people have their paints that they bring with them, and then they've got some questions. How do I mix this with this? Or I can't do this because I don't have exactly what you have. That I found myself going into people's palettes quite a bit to encourage them and be like, no, you can, it's fine. You know, it's, you can mix whatever you want, right? You just need to not really worry so specifically about what paint it is that I have. You just need to look at what you're mixing in front of you. So I think more, not so much about what specific paints that I'm putting down, but you know, cool yellow, warm blue, cool blue, that sort of thing. So hence earth orange, earth yellow is kind of what I'm after.
Mhm.
And it also helps me out if I run out of something. I go into my drawer, and it's like if I don't have French ochre, then I'm just going to grab yellow ochre. Or if I don't have either of those, and I've got some raw sienna, I mean, I could use that as an earth yellow and still manage to work through a painting. Because I used to get really hung up on, you know, if I don't have this, I'm hooped, can't do anything. So it's a lot. It's very freeing for me to kind of step out of that. So I got some little value set up in the head here, and then I'm going to come down the back.
Do you use any of the Permatech series?
Sometimes I like the greens quite a bit.
Me too.
Yeah, and the red jasper is really lovely. It's a great earth red.
I noticed you like to use turquoise. Is there a Daniel Smith turquoise you like to use?
Right now I've got the ultramarine turquoise in my palette. I used to use the cobalt teal blue a lot, but it was kind of one of those things where I felt like I was overusing it, so I kind of pulled it out. But it's calling me again, so.
Ian, just to let you know that there are, it's 7:15, quarter past, well, whatever hour it is in Canada. So we still have 15 minutes. at least.
15?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. So I'm just playing with the value, coming down a little bit, trying to strengthen up the lower area here, put a little bit of that violet in this area. You got more questions, you can just fire away. I'm just working away here.
I will read a Facebook question. Marnel, she says, forgive me, forgive the unstrained artist question. How Canadian it is for me to say sorry, but can you comment why neutral tint as opposed to watered down black?
That's an interesting question. I don't know, it's kind of really what I'm used to. I've used neutral tint. I've used Payne's gray. I think that to some extent, it's as long as you kind of know what your paint's going to do, that you spend enough time with it, that it's not going to give you any real surprises, that if black works for you, then by all means use it. That would be kind of my opinion. I'm just kind of familiar with neutral tint. If I want it, you know, a little bit warmer, I know what I want to do with it. If I want it cooler, I know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, and Christine comments, from another untrained Canadian, I think the neutral black, I don't know if she means tint, gets used because it is truly neutral, not bluish, reddish, etc. in it.
Well, it is fairly neutral. I do find it a little red, but I don't have much of a problem with that. Again, for the same thing that I just mentioned, where, you know, as long as you kind of know what you're using.
Ian, we have a question on the Facebook end, and we have someone that wants to know about the importance of, knowing the bird anatomy. Is that an issue?
I mean, I think it's kind of important, though I may have just offended a bunch of ornithologists out there. You know, there are lots of things to, you know, be aware of if you want to learn them all. And it certainly helps to have an understanding. I think the real good thing to be aware of is kind of how the feather groupings work, like the groupings of feathers around the head. So when you're looking at references, you can see little patterns and shapes to the feather groupings. I don't know the names of them per se, but I'm aware of kind of where they are. Like there's a group that sits underneath, right? There's obviously the mask that sits there on this one. That way, if you're looking at an image where the bird is kind of turned, you can kind of figure out, you know, what's happening, right? Like what is that? Is that part of the head? Is that, you know, something from the shoulder? If it's a really odd pose, it just kind of helps to really understand what you're looking at. I'd like to learn a lot more about it. I've been very grateful in a number of the courses I've taught in birds where I will have ornithologists come and, you know, learn how to paint these things that they are so passionate about as well. And they give me a lot of really good tips on, you know, what it is I'm actually looking at. And if people want to learn more about birds, there's also a really great podcast out there called The Science of Birds by a friend of mine named Ivan Phillipson. Not that I was intending to do a plug, but there it is.
Mhm.
Several people had asked, several people wanted to know what do you use for your watercolor pencil sketch?
So I use the Albrecht Dürer watercolor pencils, a Faber-Castell. I really like those. Until Daniel Smith makes a watercolor pencil, it's what I'll be using. John?
John, did you hear that?
I heard that.
But what color so that it does not interfere with the painting?
Right. I kind of like, so I use basically like a burnt umber kind of color. And I kind of like the little bit of fringing I get from it. It does release a little bit of color into the shape, and I don't mind it. I like it. So I have experimented with trying to match the color to the area that I'm painting, and I find that it's never really worked out as I would have hoped. Okay, so we're getting pretty close. How much time do I have here?
7 minutes or something. Yeah.
7 minutes? Oh, okay. We got more time than I thought.
Looks like a few people here on Zoom are painting along with you, Ian.
No, are they? That's cool. Okay, so I'm just gonna give it a quick little dry again and put a little bit more detail on here. I might get it almost complete, but if not very close. Let me just mute myself so you don't have to listen to this. There we go. Okay, I'm gonna need a little bit more blue, I think. So I just kind of want to come down this line here, bring a little bit more value up along the bottom of the wing, and then just a little bit around the head here, and that's probably where I'll get to.
Trina is also asking, does Ian generally do layers of paint or more directly single pass painting?
I try to go in about 3 passes if I'm lucky. Lights, middles, darks, details, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Sometimes I have to go back in and adjust some values and bring them up a little bit, but that's generally what I'm after.
Do you ever paint plein air?
Yep. Yeah, I don't. Okay, that's kind of an interesting one. So I do, not necessarily birds, because I will go out and sketch in a sketchbook and do that kind of thing. As far as the birds go, they move around so much. One of the things that I do enjoy, though, as far as painting birds in plein air is, say, like a great blue heron. I know some spots in the area where, it's pretty reliable at certain times of the year that one will be around. And I've been known to pre-draw my bird and then pack it up and go to the spot and then just kind of hang out there and paint the heron with the herons.
Mm.
They don't seem to care, but I enjoy it.
I don't think they do.
No, they don't. Not at all.
It's amazing how alive this bird has come when you painted the dark line.
Right?
Yeah. Came to life.
Are all your bird paintings, are they all living birds?
As in, I don't know how to respond to that without being cheeky. Can you give me some more clarification before I put my foot in my mouth?
Well, I mean, sometimes
I'm muted.
you see these photographs of deceased birds and they're done quite beautifully, photos and stuff. So I think there could be some beauty in birds that are also no longer have a heartbeat.
So you mean like
A dead bird.
Yeah, no, I have not painted a dead bird. So I was kind of wondering if you were talking about like birds that are extinct.
Oh, like a fossil.
Yeah, like a dodo or something like that.
Have you done a dodo?
I have not done a dodo.
Oh.
There is a slightly macabre part of me that has some images that I've taken over the years of roadkill that I've often thought about making into paintings, but none of them are
Someone
birds.
mentioned on Facebook taxidermy.
Taxidermy.
This particular bird, it looks like it's a male bird. It's a female bird. It's not the male one.
The female?
It's a male one.
Yeah.
The female one has got more more feather.
Right. Okay, so we're getting close to time here, so I'll just kind of finish off a couple things in here. Usually when I get to finishing off the eyes and stuff, I like to use pastel pencils. And again, this is kind of along the lines where the eye is what I am really trying to draw the eye to, no pun intended. And I find the pastel gives just a slight velvety texture that helps differentiate it from the rest of the watercolor throughout. So it's just kind of something I started doing. I've kind of experimented with pastel in watercolor a bit in the past, primarily from like some of the earlier days, learning from books and things like that. There's I think a painter in the UK, Ray Balkwill, who does these beautiful landscapes and does it mostly with watercolor washes and then goes in and does all these finishing touches with the pastel. So I've always been kind of aware of using pastel as well.
If there was one bird that you would paint for a whole year, what bird would that be?
Wow. Geez. Probably great blue heron. I love painting those. Great blue heron, seagull, oh, sorry, ornithologists, gull, western gull. I do like Steller's jays quite a bit too. I mean, there's so many. That's a tough question.
Do you listen to music or bird sounds while painting?
I don't listen to birds. Well, I mean, I guess I listen to bird sounds, but not on a recording. They're just right outside my window. So I've got a couple of feeders out there and it's always quite active. It's not charcoal pencil. Sorry, I'm looking at the chat. So I've got bird sounds going on right now. Like right now I can hear the chickadees and the juncos in the backyard.
That sounds lovely. I have hummingbirds in my backyard and they're very busy.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they just started coming around again.
Good. And my neighbor has parrots. You know, they can be very mean and bite, but he's given me
the
some
parrots.
feathers. Yes. His friend went to pet the parrot and the parrot bit him and he had to go and have stitches. So
Oh, they can have quite a bite.
Yeah. But the feathers, he gave me some feathers, and I thought they'd be interesting to paint, but they're very sort of solid color on one side and maybe a different color on the other side. I thought turkey feathers were more interesting because they got splotches and
Oh,
you know, just not so solid.
turkey feathers are pretty cool looking.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just gonna do one last little thing here. I think we're pretty close to time. Just gonna run a little value along the bottom of the head here.
You paint owls or eagles?
Yeah, I've painted some owls, short-eared owl. I've done a great horned owl. I've got was down in Mexico last year, and I got some really nice images of a pygmy owl that I keep meaning to get to.
Have you ever tried a peacock?
Yes.
The feather or the whole thing?
Yeah, no, I've painted a few peacocks. They're fun, super fun to paint. So yeah, there we go. I think the only thing that I would probably do to this, we don't want to force this thing over time. I think we've got like what, maybe a couple minutes. I would just do one more pass just underneath here with a little bit more of the burnt sienna light, drop in a little bit more value in the bottom there. That would about the only thing that I would probably add to this. I'm quite happy with the way that the head is turned out here. Love this little area down in the lower part of the shoulder. And I think it kind of exemplifies this cute little bird. So that was fun.
Awesome.
Bravo.
It's great to watch.
Yeah, thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad you asked me to do this too. That was fun. And I appreciate all the questions from everybody as been going through this.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah, I think birds are just, they're such like little tiny dinosaurs. It's like the closest that we can see today, besides alligators and crocodiles, to dinosaurs. They're just awesome.
Yeah, Google baby great blue heron.
Yeah.
Look up some images of that. And if you didn't already think that, you'd be like, oh my God, it's from Jurassic Park.
Ah.
Yeah. It looks like a little velociraptor.
Name to Google it?
Google a baby great blue heron image. It looks like a dinosaur. It's crazy.
That's too cool. Ian, thank you very much for being with us today.
Yeah, no, thank you very much.
Answering the questions was so fluid, much appreciated. Thank you everybody for joining us with Ian today. Go to his site and to his Instagram. And with that, let's say goodbye. Thank you again, Ian.
Yeah. And if you go on to the Instagram, I've got links in there. So I've got a bunch of workshops coming up, painting some birds through, actually at another local Seattle, Winslow Art Center.
Cool.
So I do a number of things with Martha there, and got some other workshops local coming up too. So
sign up for some of Ian's workshops.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
Great. Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Have a great weekend. Bye.
Have a great